In April 2008, Austrian police investigating a missing persons report arrived at an ordinary suburban home. Behind a set of basement shelves, they found an entrance that did not appear on the house's structural blueprints: a reinforced steel door weighing 300 kilograms, secured by an electronic keypad. That heavy door marked the threshold of a 24-year crime. On one side was a conventional, brightly lit residence. On the other was a subterranean void where a woman had been confined for 8,516 days. The property was owned by Josef Fritzl, a 73-year-old retired electrical engineer and real estate investor in the town of Amstetten. To his neighbors, his tenants, and his colleagues, he appeared to be a successful traditional patriarch. Behind that facade, Fritzl had imprisoned his daughter, Elizabeth, since the age of 18. During her captivity, she bore 7 children. Fritzl took 3 of them to live a normal life with his wife upstairs, while leaving the others trapped in the windowless cellar below. Fritzl operated on a routine suburban schedule while maintaining his hidden bunker. He was able to walk from a quiet family dinner upstairs directly into his basement prison, sustaining 2 distinct realities within the same 4 walls. The preparation for this crime began years before Elizabeth disappeared. In 1978, Fritzl submitted building permits for an extension to his cellar, telling authorities the new space would be used for storage. On August 28, 1984, Fritzl lured 18-year-old Elizabeth into the cellar under the pretext of helping him move a door. Once she was inside, he incapacitated her, stepped back, and sealed the entrance. This animated floor plan shows how the prison evolved. Originally a single 35-square-meter room, Fritzl eventually forced Elizabeth and her children to dig out the soil by hand to expand the area to 55 square meters, creating a labyrinth of small, windowless chambers. The confinement lasted until April 2008. Kirsten, the 19-year-old daughter born in the cellar, became critically ill and required medical treatment. Fritzl finally acceded to Elizabeth's pleas and brought the girl to a local hospital, creating the first crack in his secret world. Every stage of this timeline was a calculated engineering effort. Fritzl maintained his control through clinical premeditation, adjusting the physical environment to sustain the captivity as the children grew. Looking at this 3D wireframe of the cellar, we see the redundant security layers. Fritzl passed through 8 locked doors, starting with a 500-kilogram hinged barrier. He relied on electronic code locks and remote controls, ensuring the space was completely inaccessible and invisible to outside searchers, requiring his specific inputs to reveal the threshold. He also managed the narrative outside the basement. Fritzl forced Elizabeth to write letters claiming she had joined a religious cult, providing proof that satisfied both his family and the local police for over 2 decades. Between the redundant locks and the forced correspondence, Fritzl carefully eliminated every single variable that might lead to a leak. He created an environment where neither a building inspector nor a police investigator could find a gap in the facade. Forensic analysis of the perpetrator began with his childhood in Austria in the 1930s. Raised by an abusive single mother, Fritzl described himself as an alibi child, born solely to prove his mother's fertility after a previous marriage failed. During the bombing raids of World War II, his mother frequently sent him alone into underground air raid shelters. He recalled spending those agonizing hours in complete isolation and terror, while his mother remained safely in the house above. This pattern of predatory behavior emerged early. In 1967, Fritzl was convicted of raping a nurse at knife point. However, Austrian legal rules allowed his criminal record to be expunged after 15 years, effectively erasing his history from public view. Following his arrest in 2008, psychiatrist Dr. Adelheid Kastner diagnosed Fritzl with a severe combined personality disorder. Her clinical report described a man completely driven by narcissism, showing a profound, permanent lack of empathy for his victims. Fritzl later claimed he was born to rape, suggesting that his terrifying pathology was a completely innate drive. The intense anxiety of his childhood in wartime bunkers manifested as a compulsive need to control physical space and to completely dominate the lives of those trapped within it. Fritzl used his internal narrative to deeply justify his horrific behavior. He claimed he originally imprisoned Elizabeth because she was breaking rules as a teenager, framing the cellar to enforce discipline. His compartmentalization was absolute. He viewed himself as a provider, bringing books to the children and flowers to Elizabeth. In his mind, he was benevolent. This power complex allowed him to act as the sole source of light, food, and absolute survival. By completely isolating them from the outside world, he ensured that his word became the only reality they ever knew. The deception finally failed at the hospital in 2008. Fritzl attempted to use another forged letter to explain Kirsten's condition, but the doctors grew suspicious and alerted the police. DNA testing quickly confirmed Fritzl was the biological father of the children from the cellar. The forensic evidence was undeniable, and his decades of manipulation began to crumble under public scrutiny. During his trial, Fritzl confessed to murder by neglect for the death of an infant in the cellar in 1996. He admitted he had burned the body in a wood-burning stove, a charge that ensured he would spend the rest of his life in prison. As this comparative timeline shows, the case revealed massive failures in societal oversight. Building inspectors checked the house in 1983. Social services authorized him to foster 3 of the children, and his family lived directly above the crime, yet no one investigated the cellar. This suggests that domestic control thrives when outsiders respect the privacy of a traditional home. Fritzl's authority remained unchallenged because the institutions designed to protect the vulnerable were conditioned to defer to the patriarch of the house. In March 2009, the legal proceedings concluded. The forensic formulation revealed a convergence of personality disorders, early childhood trauma, and systemic legal loopholes that allowed a predator to operate in plain sight. Despite living in a reality entirely distorted by their father, Elizabeth and her children survived. They are now working to rebuild their lives under new identities, away from the influence of the man who held them captive. The discovery in Amstetten showed how easily absolute control can be hidden behind a respectable facade. When a perpetrator controls every door and every letter, the victim remains invisible to the very society standing inches above them.